Andrew Harbaugh, the last time we recorded this episode, the Chicago Bears had the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft probably 15 minutes ago. That is no longer the case. Welcome to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. Thank you so much for all the support you guys give us. Go to comment, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. All the videos we put out, all the great stuff. Find all of our work at allcardinals.com or slated.com/NFL/Cardinals. Like I already alluded to, the Chicago Bears no longer have the number 1 overall pick. A trade today made with the Carolina Panthers moving all the way up from the east side, number 9 to number 1. The Panthers now have the keys to the entire draft. Andrew, we're just going to get right into it, man. A massive haul for the number 1 overall pick. Pick number 9, pick number 61, a first rounder in 2024, a second rounder in 2025. And like you mentioned before we started recording, the little cherry on top, that is wide receiver DJ Moore. Before we get even to the Cardinals aspect of this, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think our exact analogy for the DJ Moore thing was the draft day. This is Ryan Poles' version of David Putney when Kevin Costner's taking a break from his ranch and getting all of his draft picks back. But no, I mean, my immediate reaction is I love this for both teams. It seems like a lot, but I think something to keep in mind is Chicago stays inside the top 10. That's a win. Carolina keeps their, they have another top 40 pick in their second round. They keep that. That's huge. Only giving up a first next year if you're Carolina, that's huge. And then Chicago getting a wide receiver 1 for Justin Fields and DJ Moore is huge. So the pick in 2025, I'm not too worried about. Like, that's 2 years out. It's funny. Usually you see that in basketball. So the seed in the NFL is different. But when you are Scott Fitterer of the Carolina Panthers and you just had your second head coach, kind of like how Steve Keim was, where you don't really survive getting 2 head coaches fired that you've hired. He now is in the hot seat. He needs to make a move, and doing this definitely sends a message to the owner in David Tepper. And if you're Frank Reich, you've got to be dancing for joy that you finally have a GM. And I love Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard, I love him to death, love his philosophy approach. But you got to love that a GM went out there and is going to get you a young quarterback to build around versus, to be honest, a washed version of your former star pupil. And then Matt Ryan, who now looks better at a CBS desk than he did on the field this year. So, yeah, I think it's a win for everyone, the whole way you look around it.
Yeah, I think I would agree too. I mean, just looking at the compensation, obviously you would expect a future, first round pick to be included in such a massive trade like this. Looking at the haul, because DJ Moore, was he not the subject of some trade speculation last season as well? Am I misremembering?
No, I believe he was. I think because he got that big contract and it was an interesting contract. I was trying to beat you to it because I knew you were going to ask about that. As filler, while I'm pulling up this contract, more breaking news, a little less so. Marcus Golden just got released by the Cardinals. So I beat our site editor to that. So I hope some bosses somewhere knows that. Anyway, DJ Moore, Carolina really, Carolina's losing money by trading him. They're actually going to have $21 million in dead cap versus $20 million in savings. So, no, I lied. See, this is why you got to click on details. Carolina saves $20 million by trading him. Actually,
okay, no, that sounds a lot better.
Pre 6-1 trade, they saved $20 million. If they would have traded him after 6-1, they would have lost an additional $6 million. So again, another reason it's a win for Carolina is you save all that money. You can now spend a little bit more in free agency. But yeah, no, he was featured in some trade rumors. So I remember he was tweeting about it and stuff like that. So no, I think this has been a long time coming. And I hope, honestly, he's not the last wide receiver we should trade it this offseason.
Ooh, little teaser for maybe down the line. But I feel like for Carolina moving up from number 9 to number 1. Um, you were expecting a huge haul, obviously. I like just looking at this. Like, I don't think it's anything crazy to ask, man. Like, I'm not sitting here thinking the Bears walked away with this like king's ransom that everybody had, really like pinning them to get for first and second for the next 2 years out, which is the maximum the NFL will allow you to have. But also at the same time, like you pointed out, the Bears do stay in the top 10. Plenty of talent to add on the defensive side of the ball or along the offensive line should Chicago choose to do that. And they have a little bit more draft ammo to, possibly make some noise in next year's draft as well. And even the draft after that with the second round pick in 2025, even though, like you said, normal in the NBA, not normal in the NFL, but unprecedented times you're entering in right now. How this impacts the Cardinals, though. And I wrote a quick article whenever the news first broke. Major winners from Chicago moving from number 1 to number 9, basically assuring that Bryce Young or whoever is going number 1, maybe forcing Houston's hand at number 2 now that they're not going to trade up with Carolina for the number 1 pick now. Seems like the Cardinals are in the driver's seat at number 3.
Yeah, the draft starts at number 3 now, and that's whether it's with Arizona or if it's somebody trading up for that pick. And that's the best part now is everyone sees it as there's 3 quarterbacks, obviously CJ Stroud, or 3 big ones, and Richardson's the 4th one that could be the hybrid alternative. And teams may not want to bet on him, and they may not want to bet on Will Levis because both those guys come with their own risks. But the 2 guarantees you would imagine at this point, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud will go 1 and 2. So that leaves Will Levis and Anthony Richardson to go 3 and 4 or off the board quarterback-wise. Arizona's not going to pick one of them, obviously. So, I mean, and Indianapolis at 4 wants one. So that's where it gets interesting to where does Indianapolis trade up 1 spot with Arizona to where they make sure they get one of those big guys or the one they prefer, essentially, because they're not going to have to have somebody else trading up like a Las Vegas or an Atlanta to where or something crazy like as we talked about on the other episode, Houston trading into the top 3 to just kind of get wacky, or Washington trading up for 16. I don't think any of that craziness happens. I think all the top 10 is kind of where the action is going to stay. But you've got 2 other teams, at least in the top 10, that are thinking about making a move. And that's where, if you're Indianapolis or somebody else, really there's 3 teams now that should be calling Ossenfort and be like, okay, what do we got to do? Yeah. And that's great if you're the Cardinals. They just got awarded what did they get yesterday? They got a 3rd, a 5th, and a 6th for compensatory picks. So I think that brings their total to 8. Give me more if it's your first draft class. I'm not saying go crazy and try to get into double digits, but get some more quality picks. Maybe trade some of those compensatory picks you just got to get some extra ones thrown in. So Ossenfort knows what he's doing, but I think he also is in the best scenario you could hope for if you're a rookie GM at this point.
Yeah, and he's been very adamant that the phones are going to be open, and it sounds like the phones are going to be open right up until they need to make a call on what their pick is going to be on, that first Thursday night in late April. If he's smart, I think he'll like stretch this out a little bit, maybe wait to see how things develop before actually accepting a deal. But I mean, dude, it's a win-win because if you're sold on a guy like Carter or Anderson or maybe even Tyree Wilson, and you were hoping neither of those guys were taken at number 1 or number 2, that's basically off the board at this point. But if you want to trade down, now you're going to maybe see a run on quarterbacks to, like you pointed out, picks number 7 and then number 8, maybe even number 6, maybe even number 4, try to get into the action and say, okay, just name the price. Name the price, we'll make it happen. You can still drop back a couple more picks, maybe have one of those guys fall to you. If not, there's plenty of other talent. As we alluded to, I think in your mock draft, you had Christian Gonzalez going to the Cardinals whenever they traded down. Plenty of options, plenty of things the Cardinals still can do. But I think you said it best. The draft starts at number 3, and I think for Monti Ossenfort, the first-time GM, perfect scenario. And I think it played out almost perfectly to what the Cardinals could have hoped for thus far.
And just to give people watching this and fans and anybody an idea, like I just looked real quick when you were talking, Donnie, to give an idea, like you said, really he's in no rush because I personally, like at this point, I don't think a trade happens before draft day or during the draft because that's when that pick is going to be its most valuable. Like I have been in the fantasy football realm, and this will be my second time in a row making a connection there. And that's one thing I've always written about and talked about with rookie drafts is if you have the 101 or whatever pick you have, its value is highest when you are on the clock because that's when you know who's there. And at this point, you know it's going to be quarterback to start. But that would be the latest I think it happens. I think the earliest it could happen is after March 28th because Kentucky's Pro Day, which is where everyone will get to see Will Levis, will be on March 24th. Florida's Pro Day, where everyone sees Anthony Richardson, will be on March 28th. So I think if anything happens, and classically, I think it was the Zach Wilson or it was the Trey Lance. The Trey Lance Pro Day in the middle of it was when San Francisco and Miami made their big trade, trading back and forth, and that's when they realized, okay, we want Trey Lance at 3. I think a team could see Richardson at that Pro Day and be like, you know what? We're all just standing here instead of just shooting the blank. Let's actually get some work done. So I think that would be the earliest you see something happen if you're Arizona and them. And Arizona has reason to have good representation at the Florida Pro Day specifically because, plugging again, my mock draft, O'Torrance, the guard for Florida, he is going to be there as well. So they're going to want to see him, who I think is a real chance at the top of the second round to be a pick for the Cardinals.
And we've talked about it time and time again. All it takes is one team, and that's kind of the beauty, but also like just like the craziness of the draft. If one team falls in love with Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, whoever it might be, and they're willing to sell the farm to move up and go get their guy, Cardinals are going to be more than happy. Kick their feet back, get that additional draft capital like you spoke on, and kind of let the board fall off from there. Because you're not going to win a Super Bowl by picking a guy like Carter Anderson at number 3. This is coming from somebody who hopes they stick at number 3. It takes Will Anderson. I don't want them to trade down. I think passing on a guy like Anderson, you don't want to be the guy that passed on him. But at the same time, you've brought this up time and time again. GMs they would rather have 5 lottery tickets than 1 winner. And that's kind of just in Ossenfort's first year with so many other holes and needs and ways to fix and improve this team. Do you feel obligated to trade down, right? Like you kind of have to.
I mean, I think, and this is where we could also look at it too, as like a crystal ball type thing. We're going to know very quickly. By the end of next week, I would imagine Byron Murphy signs somewhere, Zach Allen signs somewhere.
Yeah.
I think if those two get locked back up in Arizona, I think this pick is gone.
Yeah.
I think if Zach Allen leaves, that's where the reality of maybe sitting at 3 happens. But I still don't like that idea just because you can stay in the top 10. I don't think you fall outside the top 10. And if you do fall outside the top 10, that's where compensation like this starts to happen. So that's not a horrible thing. And clearly it's a new thing, and I love it that GMs are not afraid to throw in players and trades because you get more draft capital that way and different scenarios. But there's definitely situations where I think it just makes all the sense in the world for Ossenfort to trade back. And yes, you don't want to miss on Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, but getting all that extra draft capital doesn't stop you from trading up the next year for another playmaker. Or if you trust your scouting department and hitting on those day 2 and day 3, really day 2 picks, that's where you can really make and build a roster. That's like who I talked about, Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard in the first round is hit and miss, but that day 2 of the draft is where the Colts have been making their bread and butter. That's where the Chiefs have built Super Bowl rosters the last couple of years. That's where the Eagles have done their best. That's the other thing too. Look at these Super Bowl rosters. They're hitting on their day 2 picks. That's where I'm okay getting a little bit extra bulk is those rounds 2 and 3. But you got to hit them, obviously. But again, more lottery tickets means more chances.
No, that's absolutely true, and that's a good point too with the day 2 picks, because the Cardinals with that extra comp pick have 3 on the second day of the draft between rounds 2 and 3. So, whether that's them packaging maybe 2 threes to move up somewhere crazy in the second round and go get another difference maker, and there's really like no clear cut like puzzle piece to this, right? Like they can go edge in round 1. Round 2, go get offensive lineman. Maybe round 3, go corner. They can go corner round 1. Maybe get a edge or like defensive tackle round 2. Like you really don't know. And some GMs draft for fit, even though like they shouldn't. Others kind of just take the best player available approach. The good thing for the Cardinals, and I already brought this up, is that you have so many needs. You're almost killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, and you can't really go wrong either because you have so many needs. It's just something to piggyback on too. As like it just occurred to me again, it's on the screen, but it's an extended thought. Chicago's really like Arizona right now, where they have the quarterback figured out, but everything around it is hot garbage. And just not everything around it. Arizona has some right spots. I'm
in
when
general.
You're that bad this year, you get the analogy. Anyway. Sure. But the point is, Chicago now has that added flexibility to where they have 2 firsts next year. If they want to move up, they can get rid of a first or 2 firsts, and then they get into the top 5, top 10, whatever they want to do. But it also just having that extra first provides so much flexibility for the following year as well. And like we talked about yesterday, the 2023 season is very much up in the air if you're Arizona. Getting those extra picks again in 2024 is really where I would focus if I'm Ossenfort. That's where you get the added flexibility for next offseason and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I don't think, just to go back to your original point, I don't think you can really mess this up. But, I mean, you still can. But the chances are very slim at this point, I think. Like we said, it's really you're staring 2 scenarios in the face. And it's not the lesser of 2 evils. It's the greater of 2 positives, basically, is where you're at.
No, I really do like that analogy, because I feel like if you're a Cardinals fan and they either walk away from the draft sticking at 3 with a guy like Carter or Anderson, great. If they walk away from the first round trading back a few spots, but pick up like so much valuable draft capital and still getting a guy who can can contribute right away for the next couple of years and be part of that rebuild, also a huge win. Also a huge win. And to your point too, 2023 is kind of up in the air. We really don't know what to expect. 2024, I feel like, is kind of the year where things really need to start coming together. Maybe not right away, but kind of the year where the ship actually starts to need to be turned around. And the best way to do that is building teams through the draft. And like you said, not every team wins Super Bowl round 1. You see teams like the Colts, you see teams like the Chiefs really, really hammer those day 2 picks. And if you trade down, I'm assuming you get some sort of day 2 compensation, right?
Yeah. So like we talked about beforehand, and perfect transition now. The last time a team really traded back 1 spot was ironically with the Bears and the 49ers. Both teams we've talked about tonight for different scenarios, but then they moved back from 2 to 3. San Francisco jumped them to draft Solomon Thomas, which did not work out. But that being said, I can't remember who Chicago picked at this. Wow, Trubisky didn't work out for anybody. But the point is, neither of those GM. Well, no, John Lynch is still employed, but one of them is not. Anyway, the point is the compensation for 1 move, like we talked about day 2 picks, day 3 picks, they got a 3rd and a 4th. Doesn't seem like a lot, but again, it's extra cannon fodder to make a splash, make an explosion. If I can say that on YouTube, who knows at this point. But the point is just a little extra for moving back 1 spot. They're going to want a quarterback. Like, we don't need a quarterback if you're the Cardinals. So, again, as we talked about, there's 2 roads here. You're fine with that outcome. Like, you don't fall back too far. You could still – really, that's perfect because you still get Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, and you get those extra picks. That's what I would first be open to, is getting a call from Chris Ballard and being like, hey, what are we doing here? And then before John Irsay or Jim Irsay can, God, John Irsay, he's the one who moved him from Baltimore. Jim gets on the phone and it's like, hey, brother. And then he takes over the phone and you're talking about rock and roll music. You got to get a deal done quick.
I did not know Hulk Hogan ran a football team.
He literally sounds just like Hulk Hogan.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
Have you not heard Irsay talk?
No.
Oh, this is anyone who knows that, I can't. Anyway, next topic. Move on.
All right, but yeah, so just pulling up the top 10 order right now. Obviously, the trade does shake things up. Panthers at number 1, Bears at number 9. It was hard to envision Chicago moving out of the top 10. It's hard to envision the Cardinals moving out of the top 10. We talked a little bit about it on Thursday about that sweet spot between like 7, 8, and 9. Obviously, the Bears probably won't move from 9 to 3. I mean, we've seen crazier things in the draft, but is there like a certain pick you're eyeing that like might be more of a realistic possibility than others?
I think if they move outside, if it's not the Colts, obviously Seattle's not going to move up. They have no need to. Detroit's not going to, because this is just, both the Seahawks and Lions are both just laughing at the fact they have those picks, because it really should be the Rams and the Broncos.
Yep. I can almost guarantee you the Seahawks are going to move back with their pick in the 20s. But as sure as God's got sandals, they're going to move back and get extra draft capital like they do every year.
I think, and that's why I've been mocking it so much as a trade to 7, is because I just feel like Las Vegas got to make a splash. Like,
well, they got rid of Derek Carr. They're out on Rodgers, right?
Like they need something. And like I saw today, I can't remember who reported it, and I apologize, but they were linking them to Jimmy Garoppolo, which makes sense because they're basically the desert version of New England at this point. Just like Detroit was the Motor City version of New England when they had Patricia and Quinn as their GM. So I think Garoppolo may end up there, which may complicate things, but also Garoppolo is like a literal Band-Aid at this point. So I think you may say, hey, you know what? We'll trade up to 3. Whoever it is, if it's Levis or Richardson, perfect. They could sit a year behind Garoppolo. Garoppolo's used to this scenario, obviously, coming out of it from San Francisco. But no, I think that would be a good scenario if you're Las Vegas. And if you're Atlanta, same thing. I mean, give me Will Levis or Anthony Richardson over Desmond Ridder 11 times out of 10. But same thing can be done where you just kind of let Ridder run the show for the first couple weeks, and then you let one of them guys take over. So 7 or 8 is the sweet spot. I don't think 9 or 10 especially with Philadelphia. 9, I don't see Chicago trading back up now at that point. So I think 7 or 8 is where it's done. After that, outside the top 10, like we talked about, Houston, I don't see doing it, really. I think if Washington gets crazy, maybe. But I think Riverboat Ron's very much shown that he's very comfortable dealing with whatever monumental task a football season brings to him. And if that means staying at 16 when you need a quarterback, I think him and the GM will be fine with that. So I think it's really 7 or 8.
Dude, 50 days left. Under 50 days, actually, until the
48
NFL draft
days.
this year. Who's counting, right?
Right.
Nobody here. Plenty more draft content coming towards you guys. Any closing thoughts on the Panthers getting the number 1 pick? And I think we've already established the Cardinals are clear winners here. If they weren't already in a really good spot, now that kind of like solidifies that, like you said, the draft starts at number 3, and Ossenfort going to be working the phones, baby.
Yeah, get those extra day 2 and day 3 picks and get some the rest of them if you do that trade. I think you got to trade DeAndre Hopkins too. Like I think Hopkins is gone at that point just to get the extra compensation. Give me 3-4 picks on day 3 or day 2, and then give me some more on day 4 and really build on a roster from there. That's my final thought is Ossenfort's now got to put his big boy pants on and he wants to check egos at the door. Well, time to get some trades done, buddy.
Love it. Absolutely love it. For Andrew Harbaugh, I am Donna Duran. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. Go ahead, follow our work at si.com/NFL/Cardinals or allcardinals.com. Dealer's choice for you guys. Follow Andrew on Twitter at Andrew Harbaugh_. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Druin. Draft season is here. Things are about to get crazy. So much more draft content coming your guys' way. But until next time, see you later.